Okay. We haven't done a lore video in a bit. I've been reading books that haven't been super great for Total War Warhammer lore. Like, not a lot of legendary lords. But I was talking to some people in my chat, and some of them just wanted mild book reviews. If I had anything to say on them. So, whatever. Red Masters of Stone and Steel. Only one of the three stories was worth talking about. It's the Doom of Dragonback, which was like, it was a fine story, but I found one part of it particularly hilarious. So the Doom of Dragonback is about Ekrond, which, in Total War, Warzag starts there. Spoilers? Not a great start for the dwarves. And Ekrond used to be a relatively small mining kingdom for the dwarves. The Dragonback Mountains, you can see, looks like the back of a dragon sleeping, is pretty separated from the main dwarf holds, like Barrackvar, and then the World's Edge Mountains, and then the Black Ridge Mountains. Like, you know, Ekrond's kind of out on its own. And at this time period, Greenskins had been defeated almost 1,000 years ago by Gotrek Starbreaker, who then went on to fight the Elves in the War of Vengeance. The War of Vengeance had just ended too. So Ekrond is slowly building up. People are coming home to mine and stuff, and things are going okay. And all of a sudden, a giant migrant camp from Carrick Varn, which I couldn't find on the Total War map. Maybe someone will correct me, but from the books, it's supposed to be here. It's supposed to be at the crux of these two mountain ranges, and then near the Blackwater, which this is the Blackwater. So it's supposed to be right in here. Couldn't find it with Warzag. Whatever. There's a hold here that falls to Greenskins, and refugees flee south to Barrackvar, and then some go all the way to Ekrond. And like all the dwarves in Ekrond are like, hey, that's kind of weird. We haven't seen Greenskins in like 1,000 years. Well, they were surely defeated, and I guess Carrick Varn just sucks. Like they just had shitty defenses, and you people are shitty people. So they let some of the refugees in. And then one of the dwarves, one of the main characters, goes and he farms honey on the hillsides. And he's about here. And he sees a troll, just a random troll. And he's like, well, there hasn't been a troll in the Dragonback Mountains in like 500 years. That's crazy. What's that about? And me, being a reader, I'm like, I mean, if there's a greenskin horde coming south for you guys, as my meta-knowledge would tell me this book is about, it'd probably escape from a greenskin horde. And he's like, well, that's crazy. This is crazy. He thinks nothing of it. And then some dwarves at like a watchtower, probably around here, notice they sent some rangers out, and the rangers never came back. Well, that's odd. They send out a search party to look for the rangers, and they find the rangers stuck with goblin arrows, and they're like, oh, well, 15 dwarven rangers shouldn't lose to any random goblins we see running around here. And then one of them's like, maybe it's an army. Like an army of goblins. Maybe there's like a lot of goblins. No, that's impossible. There haven't been goblins around these parts for 600 years. And I'm like, starting to see a pattern here. So then anyway, that fortress comes under siege from a bunch of goblins. The dwarves in the little fort are like, well, it's just goblins. At least there's no orcs. There haven't been orcs here in like 800 years. So then a bunch of orcs show up. They're like, oh, fuck. So they run from the fortress, they break out, and start to sprint back to Ekrond to warn them and stuff. And as they're running, some of the dwarves in the column are like, well, greenskins are just mindless animals, so we'll be fine if we can get to one of the outer towns. And I'm like, oh, God. Okay, whatever. And one of the characters is like, what if they're like an army? Like, what if this isn't like an assortment of random goblins and then random orcs that got together to siege a fortress? And the rest of the dwarves in the call are like, nah, you're a fucking idiot. There haven't been organized orcs in like 1,000 years. And I'm like, bruh, figure it out. So they get to the small town. Well, it's not a small town. Like, all dwarven, quote-unquote, towns are like forts. But it was one of the deeps, and then they talked to some people there, and like, you should go talk to the king. And they go talk to the king, and then ranger reports are coming in, and they're like, hey guys, like, there's wyverns in that army, and a bunch of orcs on those wyverns, and one of them looks like a general or something. And also, there's a bunch of orcs, like a bunch. Guys, it might be an army. So these guys have to run away from wyverns, and they get all the way back home, whatever, it's fine. And they report to the king, and the king's like, okay, so we've established it's an army. We all knew it was an army the whole time. It destroyed Carrickvarn, it came down for us. Even though we said that wouldn't happen, it came down for us. So it's an army. But they won't be able to get past the walls, because those walls haven't been breached in 1,000 years. And then a dwarf runs in, and he's like, they have giants. Okay, guys, so those walls are breached, but the second walls, no one's breached in 2,000 years, so we're good. And then the dwarves mount a brief defense. Goblins get thrown at the walls, orcs get thrown at the walls, nothing works, and they're like, haha, we did it. And then the greenskins have catapults, and like, some of the dwarves, at this point, some of the dwarves on the wall are still like, greenskins with siege engines? Well, they can't. They're mindless animals. They're stupid idiots. They couldn't possibly. And then boulders start smashing into the wall, and I'm like, when will you learn? And finally, the king and all these people are like, huh, they might breach these walls. We should evacuate. And everyone else is like, nah, fuck you, dude. They haven't breached these walls in 2,000 years. We're not leaving. We're not doing shit. And then the greenskins breach the walls and kill, like, everybody. Like, everybody's dead. So, yeah. Dwarves a little slow on the uptake there. a little slow to learn what was going on. As the whole book is just, surely not. And you as the reader, you're like, oh god. Fucking hell. I mean, it was a good read. It was fine. It was well written. It tracks with the dwarves. It's not that I'm saying it's unbelievable. It's just like, oh, fucking dwarves. Whatever. Here's a rant part 2. Rant part 2 is that's the end of the book, but there's a minor thing in the book which I take issue with. And I mentioned it once on a live stream, but I never had a moment to actually like record it. The Warhammer timeline is stupid in a lot of ways, but one thing that bothered me is Barrack-Var. In the War of Vengeance, the war with the elves, Barrack-Var was like this super awesome naval fortress city. And in the War of Vengeance, the elves unleashed merworms in that little port you see. Like, they got these giant sea serpents in there, and they started thrashing around, and they like brought down a lot of the cavern. And there was an explosion. A Tzeentchian cultist set off a bomb in there. Well, that was loud. Tzeentchi cultist set off a bomb in there. And one of the elves snuck in and poisoned the wells. So like 75% of the people in Barrack-Var died. Their gates were destroyed. Everything about this place was destroyed. In the Doom of Dragonback novel, that's after that occurred. But not that much after it occurred. It's like 200 years or so. But like, if you're a dwarf, that's not a lot of time. In the book, they're like, well, the greenskin horde that was at Carrickvarn might go past Barrack-Var because of its mighty walls and great army. And I'm like, mighty in what? No, that shit's still destroyed. That is mega fucked up. Like, they have not recovered. And the whole book, it's like some of the Ekron dwarves that want to leave because they can see the writing on the wall are like, we could go to Barrack-Var, we could make a break for it. I'm like, what is there? It's fucking destroyed. No, it's been established so many times that the dwarves don't have the skill of their ancestors. They can't rebuild holds, like, correctly. They can't remake these big gates or whatever that used to hold this place because they were one of a kind. Like, that was the tragedy that occurred when Barrack-Var fell, is that none of it could be recovered. You can't just, like, hand wave 250 years later. It's like, it's super chill, it's fine. It's totally fine. That's not how this works. That's not how anything works. Because, like, I don't know. You could be saying, like, oh, well, maybe the dwarves hastily constructed something. Alright, bro. It's dwarves we're talking about. They would rather die than do anything expediently. Well, all those people died, but maybe they got settled by other people. Nah. Nah, that's not how, like, dwarven birthright goes. Because Barrack-Var would not take a whole bunch of refugees because they wouldn't want, like, a majority of the people living there to not be from Barrack-Var. So no, it's just a plot hole. Like, the more you know about Warhammer Dwarves, the more you know they're way too stubborn to do anything practical. So Berikvar is still probably a struggling settlement with a bunch of broken shit that they're slowly trying to rebuild. Nah, son! Alright, that's what I have. Read the book if you want, it's fine. Masters of Stone and Steel, there were 2 other books in there, but I didn't make videos on either of them. There wasn't anything funny or interesting to say. They're both fine stories, but yeah, one is just talking about a dwarf holds grudges, and they end up hating everybody around them, but it wasn't too much to say, and then the other one is like, a dwarf is taken over by Skaven and Greenskins, and the dwarves send like 200 guys to take it back, and shocker, they don't. They all died. Wild stuff. Okay, goodbye.
Subscribe, yes.